So the T, it might come last, but it's most important.
Yeah. And it's a threefold thing, right?
Absolutely.
Transparency, trust, and teamwork.
Absolutely.
One leading to the other.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Family, because we are talking about family businesses. Then execution. Implementation is 9/10 of the law.
Absolutely.
If you haven't got it right, if you don't have a team that will run with it, you don't have anything. But there is a stigma attached to lunacy,
Even
to
like
schizophrenia, to psychotic.
Even smaller things like anxiety or stress. "45 years of practice as a professional psychiatrist, 20 plus years of experience as entrepreneur." Our guest today has a lot to share in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of how entrepreneurs manage their stress. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the BYOB Podcast by Sunrise International. Our guest today is Dr. Sara Khorakiwala, renowned psychiatrist, a renowned entrepreneur, one of the most influential businesswomen in Dubai. Dr. Sara, it's my pleasure to welcome you on the BYOB Podcast.
Thank you, Sachin. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you, especially as I've seen you come up with Toastmasters. It's like, old times.
Old times, yes. Yeah. So, Dr. Sara, let's look at your journey first. Okay, you're very popular. People know you already. But for those of you who don't, okay, how would you describe who Dr. Sara is, like a 30,000 feet view of like a quick overview?
That's a little difficult to verbalize, especially because you're asking me to look at myself, So it's not the easiest task, but I would say that I've been many things. I wear many hats. I've been a daughter, I've been a sister, I've been a wife, a mother, a psychiatrist, a tourist, and a serial entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think every part of my professional life has been more through persuasion, necessity, whatever you want to call it. But my milestones, like being a daughter, being a sister, being a mother, being a wife, these are things that, being a human being has come naturally to me. And that's been, I would say, not by persuasion, but by innate desire to excel in those roles. And it's far harder to excel in those roles because there's no mark sheet, there are no question papers, and it's much harder there than to do other things. As an entrepreneur, a profit and loss, whether you're in black or red, you know how good you are.
Yeah.
It's right there. And even if you're making losses, if you can sell your company and get your money back on it, also it's a way of finding out. My professor at Harvard, funnily enough, turned around and said, how you evaluate yourself is very simply ask what kind of world you would be living in if your company or your business was not active in it. If there would be a significant loss in the quality of life because you are not operating professionally in it, then that's your answer.
The impact that you leave.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. But, as I said, I became a psychiatrist because my mother was the presidency surgeon. And she was an amazing mother and she was an amazing doctor. And unfortunately, she passed away when I was just 12. And it left such a serious impact on me that for me, that was it. My fate was signed, sealed and delivered. That was the gold standard. Meaning, that was the gold standard I aimed to work towards.
Right.
I mean, like, she was apparently very good at sports. She was a tennis player and the ladies tennis champion at her alma mater, which was Agra Medical College. She stood 5th in the state when she sat her MBBS.
Wow.
You know, I mean, the one place I could never compete was her height, because the height gene is carried on the father's chromosome. She was 5'10.5" and my father was 5'1".
Oh, okay.
So there was no way I could have made it to that height. But yes, so I decided I had to be a doctor. That was it. And then in that, I chose psychiatry because, you know, again, I'm working to that gold standard. So in the same time that other people would complete a degree, I did 3.
Wow.
I took additional courses and completed a BSc with zoology honors. And then I did my first professional. Those 3 years went by. Then I moved to Delhi University. I completed my MBBS there and simultaneously did my master's in clinical psychiatry.
The BSc and all was in Lucknow?
No. Aligarh.
Aligarh University.
Aligarh.
Yeah.
Aligarh Muslim University.
Yeah.
But there used to be a lot of strikes and everything, so I gave up finally and I said, let me just move out of here. I need to finish within. You know, that goal was there.
Yeah.
You know, I was competing against the set standards, so I couldn't afford to stay there, so I moved.
Yeah. When you look back now at your journey personally and professionally, right?
Yeah.
Which of these 2 roads that that stand out to you and wave at you from the memories that what are your most cherished memories here?
If you say most cherished, I would say that my childhood was absolutely cherished. It was halcyon. It was amazing.
So let's start with that part then. Tell us about your childhood. Where were you born? Tell us about your parents, your siblings.
I was born in Delhi at the turn of the independence. I was born in 1955. It was a very different India and a very different Delhi. Just looking at that city, I recall that we could tell the seasons by which trees were flowering.
Wow.
Our streets had the trees met overhead, you know.
Covered with the
completely.
The roads the sunlight doesn't touch the road.
No, it doesn't.
Wow.
And then when you get the gaps at street, you know, at the signals or at the roundabouts, you actually see the sky. And the streets used to be often, I mean, I remember jacarandas. You know, jacarandas have this purplish blue flower. And they are copious in their flowering, you know. Even more than gulmohar. Gulmohar, of course, the flowers are all over and there's hardly any leaves.
Yeah.
But what falls down on the ground is not that much, or at a given point in time. Jacaranda, yes. So literally, you would find the road littered with, you know, these purple flowers. It would be like, it was so beautiful. You know, you wouldn't want to pedal your cycle on those roads because you would be crushing flowers. And then the winter would come and then you would have the red silk cotton and the, you know, those ones. And I remember as kids, we would, you know, pull off the sepals of the fallen ones, cut it at the end, and then very happily, you know, completely unbothered by hygiene issues, we'd lick it and stick it on our nail because it was shaped like a nail, and then you have an instant manicure and you're showing red nails. I mean, it was amazing.
Wow.
And then you'd have summers, you would have the Gul Mohor and the Amal Tash.
Yeah.
And avenues would literally be covered from both sides. And the roundabouts and the islands were burgeoning with flowers.
Yeah.
We went to school, when we went to school in winter, it would often be -3 degrees. And when we went into assembly and you had to kind of stand with your hands folded to say the prayers, our fingers were numb, so we'd be standing like this, You couldn't really get it straight, but it was a different lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't see that anymore. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody cared about everybody. People didn't generally throw litter on the streets. They had a far higher sense of hygiene than we have today.
When you look at the city now, the city of Delhi, do you think that it's like we've ruined it?
Absolutely. But then having said that, I haven't been in Delhi really living there for the last nearly 45 years. I left Delhi in 1977, I think. I moved to Bombay for a short while.
Okay.
And then I came to Saudi Arabia in 1981.
Okay.
February 12th to be precise.
Wow. You remember the exact
I
date?
remember that. And then I haven't really been back to live in India since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I've visited often, but I see Delhi is now very bestial. That's the only way I can describe it. It's a complete dog-eat-dog world. And I don't get that. Indians were not like that. I mean, I was raised by 2 Indians, and I even today carry an Indian passport. That's the only passport I have. I mean, I've been offered various passports several times, but it never registered in my mind to accept another nationality. I mean, my father's family, they trace their line back to the Chola dynasty. And एक पुरानी कहावत होती है कि बादशाहत और ब्राह्मणत की बू 7 पुश्तों के बाद जाती नहीं है. So थोड़ी सी अकड़ रह जाती है. And I feel that मुझ में भी वो अकड़ रह गई है. So I felt I was, I couldn't possibly throw away my brand identity, so to speak. So I never changed my passport. I stuck with it. But the Indian that I know or that I identify with is a very different Indian. My father was the director of the Ministry of Printing and Stationery. My mother was the presidency surgeon. I've seen ministers, prime ministers, MPs, MLAs, businessmen coming and going from my mother's home. Of course, family and friends. And this is, I'm talking about after work hours. My mother was a heart patient. She eventually passed away because of that. She was born with a rheumatic heart, and that has its own, challenges. But I've never heard my mother tell anybody in the house to say, if a patient comes, कि बोल देना डॉक्टर सो रही हैं.
Always available.
Always available.
Always at service.
She has done a whole day's work and she's come home. I've seen her never having the time to sit down and eat a meal in peace. You know, there was this white enamel bowl with, you know, the bluish ring around it. Invariably, after she, you know, made sure that everyone's eaten and everything, she would put all the rice into that bowl, put whatever dahi and whatever sabzi and whatever else she wanted in that, literally mix it there, stand and eat it, run off, go wash her hands, and then she'd be back at work.
Yeah.
You know, and we didn't make her life any easier because we were that young and we were troublesome. And, you know, I recall with a great deal of regret that I wouldn't even feed myself, you know. And invariably, as she felt sort of pressured to make sure that her only daughter was not going to be starving to death. And I used to be very skinny in those days. I ate a ton, but I was skinny. So they kept feeling that I wasn't eating enough. So she would literally feed me. And I'm thinking that would have been at least 10 minutes of her time that I could have saved her. She might have done something she liked with that, you know. But if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. And when that time is gone, it's gone. You know.
What was the influence she had in terms of, you know, values and career aspirations on you?
As I said, being and also ran was not part of our makeup. You had to be amazing at whatever you did. Yeah. It wasn't enough for you to get the top marks. You had to be the first in class. If you got a first class, you had to be a gold medalist. You know, there was always a rung higher you were encouraged to aim for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, call it pressure or call it working towards a goal. We really did work hard to get there, you know. So that was the influence she had on us. And strangely enough, my mother she played the harmonium also.
Oh, okay.
And Sehgal was one of her patients when she was working in UP. So I've been with her to, you know, to the railway station just to say hi to Sehgal. I mean, he told her he was passing through. Mm-hmm. So she went to the station to say hello to him. And I happened to be there, so she took me along as well. And he actually sang Bangla Bane Nyara in the train for her, listening pleasure. So, you know, I have all these myriad memories, you know, and it was really quite awesome. She would sit with us on Mondays and on Fridays, where you had the forces request and the date with you. And we'd listen to all these songs. And some of those songs she would want us to write down the words so that she could, you know, she would sing. It's amazing the kind of things she did. She'd make sure on a Sunday we had our massages, hair oiled, everything. And then we are stripped down to our waist. And then we are all, I mean, when I say all, I only have one brother who's 6 years, 4 months older than I am. But my parents, for some very obscure reason, raised 7 out of the 8 sons that my father's younger sister had, and quite a few other, you know, his other sister's sons, and I don't know what. So I grew up in a house with 9 men after my mother passed away. My father, the 7, and my brother. So that makes 9. And none of them were married at that time. So I was the only woman. We lived in a 5.5-acre house. And nobody would send their daughters to play with me because those days they didn't think it was safe to send a young girl to a house with so many unattached males. It was just the way of thinking. So I grew up as one of the boys. I climbed trees. I spun tops. I flew kites. I learned to make my own manja.
Wow.
Because I wasn't willing to lose.
Yeah.
So my manja had to be sharper, and I did that very simply by grabbing all the churis, the glass churis, and my mother's distilled water bottles.
Crush the glass.
And my father was the director of the Ministry of Printing and Stationery. So there was always lots of lehi around. See, because you would use that glue for book binding and stuff. So I would grab a little bit out of that, which was, because at the end of the day it's discarded. So that was all I needed, a little bit, And I would mix in all this, we'd grind it on a silbatta and, mix it in. And then, since you had such a large yard, you tied the twine from one end to the other and, you put layers on, let it dry, and it was amazing. But on the Sunday, to come back to the Sundays, she would line us all up. We got the mandatory 1 spoon of cod liver oil. We didn't get tablets or those capsules. So it was that horrible taste, and we got another spoon with a piece of pickle, and you stuck them both into your mouth at the same time so that you didn't have to taste the cod liver oil. And we got our dose of the essential oils, the vitamins that we needed, and then she would send us off, task each of us with some mundane task, and it was in rotation. It was either mowing the lawn, milking the cow, we had cows.
Wow.
Feeding the cow, picking up the cow dung, making cow pats out of it, digging up the yard to plant vegetables, or harvesting the fruit and vegetables, or mowing the lawn, or sweeping the paths that ran through. We had these bridle paths because my father also had a horse. So you had bridle paths breaking up this huge piece of, land. The house sat in the middle of it. So we would be tasked with mowing that, and you didn't have, pull start ones or button press ones. No. It was either you tied up, you harnessed a bull to it and it pulled, or you harnessed yourself to it. So it would be a 3-man job. 2 people would pull and 1 guy would push from the back, and we'd get the lawn mowed. But I used to think that at that point in time that my mother was extremely, sadistic, and she was setting us out to do all these menial tasks, and what the hell was this and whatever. But as I grew older and I went through life, I realized that it equipped me with a whole lot of skills that never let me down. I'm not afraid of hard work. And it doesn't matter what. Even today, if I find my yard doesn't look the way it is, the way I want it to look, and I love my garden, I'll pick up a broom early morning, 6 o'clock, and start brooming the yard, and dare anybody tell me they can't do it after I've done it, And as an entrepreneur, that gives you an amazing sense of power. I've not succeeded by putting a whole lot of money and starting some fancy hi-fi, industry. I'm not in real estate per se as an entrepreneur. What I've done is I did, like you, first small one-man army things. But those were models that couldn't be scaled. I had a concierge service where focused on gifting. Anything that you want, whether it is an apartment in Mayfair or whether it's some fancy yacht or, you know, a gown which has got 50 carats of diamonds encrusted into it as a wedding gown. It doesn't matter how outlandish your gift. I was the person who could deliver it. So that was this thing. But you couldn't scale it because, you know, people are not able to imagine those sort of things. They're not able to knock on doors to get the kind of support to deliver these kind of asks. I could, you know, but it was not scalable. So I ran the business, made good money. When I didn't want to continue with it anymore, I moved out of it.
Where was this?
Oman.
Oman, okay.
Then I ran restaurants and bakeries. Restaurant was my own startup.
Okay.
French bistro. But again, I couldn't really scale because I didn't come from a hospitality background. I'm a doctor. You know. And while I can do a lot of things and I'm passionate about cooking, I really can't teach and maybe start multiple branches all over the place. And if you want to really succeed or build a chain like Alain Ducasse or somebody like that, then you need to have a branch in.
Yeah. It's a different model.
Yeah, it's a different model.
True.
So I wouldn't have been able to do that. But I made good money with, you know, Le Bistro. And then I multiplied it to other branches, albeit with a different name, Golden Gate, because it wasn't French anymore. It was more international cuisine. It was Italian and French. And in catering, we would supply Indian also. But again, man management skills in entrepreneurship is such an important skill if you want to scale up.
Yeah.
And I hadn't got that at that time. You know, I was good at doing things. I mean, even when my husband, who comes from an entrepreneurial family, and he has an MBA, you know, to be precise, MMS from BITS Pilani. And then he went on to Harvard to do OPM, which I also did later on. He also, see, in a successful business, you need to have passion. I converted it to a simple acronym, which is FELT, which somehow now the whole company knows about. How they remembered that or who gave it to them, I don't know. But I didn't speak about that to them. I spoke about this to my children. I'm very fond of making acronyms like SMART, you know, simple, measurable, achievable, time-bound, you know, reasonable, those kind of things. So SMART goals. So similarly FELT, you know, family, because we are talking about family businesses. Then execution. Implementation is 9/10 of the law.
Absolutely.
If you haven't got it right, if you don't have a team that will run with it, you don't have anything. I always say that implementation will eat strategy for breakfast. The strategy works in a virgin market and for a short time. In a mature market, it will always be execution. L being for love. You have to be passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Passionate about the people you're working with, passionate about what you're doing and how you're doing it. All of it matters. And then finally, the T, which is team.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
Trust.
Trust.
And trust comes even before team.
Yeah.
Because if you cannot build trust, you cannot build a team. You have to be transparent. People build on that transparency and get to trust you. And when they trust you, they're willing to join your team. So the T, it might come last, but it's most important.
Yeah. And it's a threefold thing, right?
Absolutely.
Transparency, trust, and teamwork.
Absolutely.
One leading to the other.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Because when you work together as a team, you are worth maybe 10. I'm worth maybe 15. Maybe somebody else is worth 25. Somebody else is worth, and I'm saying in terms of what you can generate, the value you can generate as an individual.
Yeah.
Okay? But when you come together as a team that is cohesive and works together, then the value you create is not the sum of the parts. It's an exponential value. It's a multiplication.
Yeah.
And then it takes the value we create to millions. So if I was worth 15 then, now with that multiplication I'm worth 150.
Yeah.
There's enough there for everybody.
Yeah.
You get the
Absolutely. I mean,
importance of that.
When teams work together, it's not just addition. It's like, it's not 10 plus 10, it's 10 times 10.
Absolutely. So understanding that is how you get into a successful business.
Yeah.
But to go back on that journey, I went from concierge to restauranting. Then I started picking up all the retail units of my husband. We are in the bakery business. We're in all the verticals of the bakery business. So, and then as I keep saying, I became an entrepreneur by persuasion. When I found my marriage failing and situations changing, I knew that, as a psychiatrist, I only see the downside of anybody's life. I'm the untouchable, I'm the Harijan of doctors. Everybody will talk about, my cardiologist said I can reduce my, medication. They'll talk about having gone to their, they will even talk about having gone to their, for their colonoscopy or anything like that, which is really, getting your unmentionables examined. But when it comes to me, the psychiatrist, nobody wants to talk about me. Person who's consulted me in the day, if they happen to see me on the street at night, the gynecologists are the happiest. Years after, you will find people running behind the gynecologists, the gynae OBs. Doctor Saab, aapi ka bachcha hai, They are so happy to see them. Yeah, absolutely. Those are happy people.
Absolutely.
Me, you think they're going to acknowledge me? She's a psychiatrist, she's a doctor. I didn't know that. No, you did.
You were there in the afternoon in my office.
Yes, in my clinic. But it doesn't matter because nobody likes to admit when they're stressed or when they think they're losing their mind. That is an unmentionable.
Why is that?
I guess it comes back to society. You look at every term that is attached. There's no stigma attached even to HIV today. But there is a stigma attached to lunacy,
Even
to schizophrenia, to psychotic.
Even smaller things like anxiety or stress. If you are hiring someone and you know that this person is
Gone
through treatment for stress,
you wouldn't hire them.
You wouldn't hire them, right?
Because they're high maintenance.
Yeah.
But then my take on that has always been, hello, we're all a little broken somewhere.
Absolutely.
Either as a permanent part of ourselves, or sometimes in our lives we're broken. The ones that succeed are not the ones who've never been broken. In fact, those are the ones who succeed over and above, because what is resilience? It is not having been born rich or whatever. Yes, I was lucky enough to be born with not the proverbial silver spoon but the proverbial golden spoon in my mouth. But then it can go just like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you don't have the right values.
Yeah.
Only your values, the way you're brought up. My son-in-law has a very cute term. He calls it Broughtupsy. And I've adopted that term. It sounds so good and it's so self-explanatory.
Yeah.
When you have Broughtupsy, you have values, you have civic sense, you have commitment, you have authenticity. You automatically engender trust. All those things come in.
I think there are two sides to this. People who are born privileged doesn't necessarily it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're born privileged you will have good values and you'll succeed in life, nor does it mean that if you're born underprivileged, you can't succeed in life, right? It's just
absolutely,
it's what you do with what life has given you. And that is why, remember when we were discussing before the interview and I was saying that you and I, we come from different beginnings, completely opposite, right? And there are stories like mine which get glorified, right? Because rags to riches stories. But here's a riches to riches story which is as important, and because this is where the whole point of values and how you respond to the things that are on your plate and how what life offers.
Absolutely. And one of the things I remember, the burden of responsibility that I had.
Yeah.
My father, when I got married, my mother had already passed on when I was 12. And my father gave me some money and other stuff like land and stuff. Now, I had given almost all of it. I just held back 50,000, which I then invested in stocks and shares for my kids. I had only two at that time. That was Tahira and Adil. But everything else I gave to my husband to bootstrap. And everything that I was earning was just going into raising the family, because when we came to Saudi Arabia, the Indian rupee was not convertible. Come sun up, you better start running and keep running, because it's a here and now. Every day matters. There are 5 different types of wealth. One type of wealth is actually financial wealth. Cash, gold, property, whatever. A son raised without the influence of a father, a present father, usually winds up a very weak person.